you ready to dream again? Let's embark on a journey together to uncover and discover your God-given dreams, ignite inspiration into your life, and empower you to pursue those dreams daily. If God's planted a dream in your heart, trust that He will provide everything necessary for its fulfillment. The right connections, the right people, the perfect timing for all of it, and more. Have faith, believe in yourself, and dare to dream big. Welcome to the Dream Catalyst podcast. I'm Joan Daniels, and I am super excited to introduce you to my longtime friend, Dr. Jan Van Blarcum. So let me put my old lady glasses on for a second. So back in 1999, remember when it was Party Like It's 1999, Jan?
Yes.
She started an amazing tutoring company that then led to a 501(c) charitable organization that is amazing called Creative Learning for Kids. And that led her to what she's doing now, which is an expansion of what she was doing then. And it's called the Einstein School. And it is in Plano, Texas. You guys, this is an amazing school by an amazing founder. Age ranges 5th grade all the way through 12th grade. These are all college-bound students, which I think is so amazing. But what's so cool about Einstein School is it's small group instruction with just 8 kids to 1 teacher, which I don't know where you get that other than like maybe homeschooling. I don't know, Jan. But the small class size allows the students the opportunity to excel. And students that attend Einstein School find that school is less stressful. Oh my gosh, don't we need that? Learning becomes fun again. And the students plan to attend universities and college in their futures. And when they realized, what Einstein School can offer, I will tell you from my own family's experience, they understand the strong academic foundation that they have, plus all the resources and amazing things that the Einstein School does for them to get into college. So please welcome the amazing whirling dervish of energy and brilliance, pretty much like Einstein, I think, brilliant mind. This is Dr. Jan Van Blarcum.
Thank you for having me.
And it's so hilarious that we match because we did not talk about this. We haven't even had our own conversation about this, and we matched today, which is funny. And I know a lot of people are just listening. This is not everyone's going to watch it on video, but oh my gosh, it's so good to see you.
It's so great to see you.
Like how many years? I think 18, because Casey, I was pregnant with Casey when I met you.
That's right.
18. He's 18.
Your daughter was, I believe, preschool.
Yes.
And I remember your
experience,
talking about the experience and all of that.
My problem with my daughter was as a first-time parent, you don't know if your kid's ahead, behind. You have the books, and God bless the parents today because they have the internet. We didn't really have that back then. Not really, right? Where we could like Google it. But I was like, I don't know. Like, I think maybe she's smart, but I might need some help because she's kind of too smart in a way. And what do I do with that? And the amazing thing about networking in the world, people, if you're listening to this, is that you will meet the most extraordinary people and people that God put in your path on purpose, like Jan Van Blarcum, who you might need in the future. And so Jan was my go-to resource, and you were invaluable on that because we got her academically tested. And then you helped me with a path forward and kind of understanding what she needed as a kid. Mm-hmm. How brilliant are you? So tell us a little bit about your background, just that wasn't in that little intro. Like, tell us how you got here.
I was that kiddo who was always sort of thinking outside the box. I wasn't a brilliant student. I had an older sister who was 2 years older than I am, and she was brilliant then, and she's brilliant today. I was the kid that had to work really hard. I had dyslexia. Back in the day when they were trying to diagnose that, they had, a neuropsych that had to do, they stuck your head with all these little, sensors. Now, you can take mostly your testing through IQ and achievement testing. But, and my dad was in the military. So part of, his assignments at some point, he was in embassy duty. And it didn't strike me till I was much older that, oh my gosh, they took a picture of my family before he would be allowed to go into the embassy corps. He was, military, and he was part of the embassy. But they took a picture of our family to make sure that I didn't look different because I had this disability called dyslexia.
Oh my gosh. me.
I'm
Say,
not
what
kidding
did
you.
you think you were going to look like?
I don't know.
My
And what would
goodness.
it have mattered?
It?
Right?
Gosh, that's
It doesn't
crazy.
matter what someone's disability is. And so we've come a long way, and just the way our society and people, expect, of others that have, that learn differently or, experience life differently. And so I was always having to work really hard. Through school, and I was the kid who came home and cried, and I hated school, and at one point during my elementary years, my parents in one of our military, communities, they just said, something, Jan, we're going to take you out of, fourth grade and put you back in third grade, because there weren't the services for, the reading programs that you see in school systems today. And that was actually probably a really good thing, because also with moving from, one country to a different state and, all over the place, in that time frame, the military sometimes moved you 2 and 3 times a school year. So obviously there were going to be some gaps. So they moved me to this small little school, and I thrived. And so as we continued, kind of growing up, I graduated high school, and I had just turned 19. So I was a little bit older than, my peers. And I graduated and went to a community college in the Republic of Panama, because I graduated from high school there. And at that time, that was the Pan Canal. And it was a U.S. Accredited, community college. And I really, I really wasn't ready to go off to the 4-year, institution. So I stayed for a year, and I did the summers on both ends of my freshman year of college. So when I left the Pan Canal, I actually left with 2 years of college under my belt, and then I moved to the University of Maryland, and so I kind of gained, my year that I retained back, when I was in my college years. And so I just sort of, hit college by storm and enjoyed it. And I found my husband, when I was at the University of Maryland, and we married. At some point we moved to Plano, Texas. And I, had my oldest daughter at the time was just turning 2. And it really was a time for me to be able to sort of reinvent myself again. I had sort of a career in Maryland, and so I did, and I started
And
working
what
with.
what did you do in Maryland? I can't remember. Were you a teacher?
Oh, I taught, yeah,
You taught.
and
Okay.
I taught, and so, but when I came to Texas was really the place that let me become who I really think I was destined to be, and so I opened a small little business, after my child was, finishing up her preschool years. And I opened up a small little business that really was just taking preschoolers around on field trips. And what I realized was there were a lot of people who wanted their kids to be, out exploring the world. And so I did that for a couple of summers. And as my oldest daughter, entered into the public school system, at some point during her kindergarten year, I remember saying, "Oh no, she can't read." And I was like, and she heard me say that. And I was like,
Oh.
"Oh my gosh, what have I done?" I shouldn't have said it in the way that I had. And but I had her tested. She had the gift of dyslexia too. And she was an incredibly hard worker. I look now, and she's in her 30s. And this
Oh
is a
my
girl.
gosh, she's in her 30s.
I
Hang on,
know
let's
she's in her
just
30s.
pause on
And,
that.
and I look at her and I'm like, wow, I'm so amazed with you, because she has two undergraduate degrees. She's got 2
Wow.
master's degrees. She has all of her hours in a PhD program completed. And, this was a little girl who struggled with reading, and she was incredibly hardworking. And, I have it's a beautiful situation to be in, is when you can look back and go, oh, wow, we did these things and we did them the right way.
Yes.
And then
Good life.
yeah, and she works really hard. And then, I have a daughter who's 6.5 years younger than she is, completely, different type of learner. And she was more of your, ADD type of kiddo. And she's my daughter, that I refer to as, if I'd had her first, I might not have had a second. She was my one that just knew the buttons to push, right? So I love being able to look back. She's now, about 25, and I love to look back over, her experience, because really with my oldest daughter, at some point I realized we needed to open a tutoring company for our community. And so I did. I realized that not just this one person, but many kids were experiencing the same things that she was, and you can't expect all of the support to come just from your school, and parents don't necessarily know what's best for their child, and relationship with the child and the parent gets in the way of really good teaching sometimes. So I opened the tutoring company, and our tutors were licensed certified teachers. We sent them out to the home, and we customized programs for them, and it was fantastic, and I loved what I was doing, and I'm like, this is what I'm supposed to be doing forever. So I franchised it. What would you do next? I mean, you open a small little business. I'm kind of like that pie maker. I'm thinking like, well, why wouldn't the whole world want to do what I'm doing, right?
You think
Oh
just
my
like me. I'm like, well, why shouldn't I put a podcast out?
exactly. Well,
So
the whole world wants to know all this stuff, right? So I franchised it, and I remember people saying to my husband, does she know what, she has to do with franchising? I'm like, oh, I'm loving it. What I loved about franchising was I got to learn all about it. What I didn't love about it was that I had turned my company into a franchise system. And what had I done? So, about 10 years of the franchise system, was there. But what that 10 years was for me was the life learning of running a business that led me to what I really should be doing. And many clients across the years would say to me, Jan, why aren't you opening a school? Why are you doing this, tutoring thing? I'm like, oh, you have to be a nut to open the school. Do you understand what that means? And I was explaining about accreditation and all this stuff. I'm like, oh, that's just not for me. I'm so happy, with the franchising and the tutoring. But then one day I wake up and I see my younger daughter, and she's in a small little school in the Plano area that we loved. There was nothing wrong with that school, except that one day I realized that, wow, there's a bunch of mean girls, treating her really mean. And I'm
yeah.
like, okay, we can fix this problem at that school. So I went in and I explained to them about how, we had all these connections, and that we could do some training for their teachers and their staff about how to, identify this and how to help the kids get along better. Because, kids who've been bullied, or, that mean kid syndrome that happens, they walk away damaged. I said, you realize what, PTSD is? And I said, this is what you're looking at when you've got a child that's, enduring this. I mean, we were negotiating at this point, her even, going to school. It was a lucky day if I had her in on a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Monday and Fridays, would negotiate them off. It was terrible. And I knew we couldn't continue that. So I went in, ready to help, and bring, the power of all of my connections, to this, place. And the principal looked at me and he said, we don't have any time for that. We can't train our teachers and help the kids learn how to, treat each other better. You just have to suck it up and
Wow.
move on.
Yeah.
And so I was sitting there and I was like, I said, would it be okay for my daughter to go say goodbye to her teachers and pick up any last assignments? you know, this was happening in April, and her birthday was the end of March, and I got to see the mean stuff in person. And so he said, sure, she can go get her things. And I said, all right. So I waited. She came back into the room. She collected her stuff, said goodbye to her teacher. She's looking a little shell shocked. And I just said, I just need a few more minutes of your time. And he said, sure. I said to my daughter, I said, look, um, I can't let you stay in a place like this if they don't value what's happening. That by me saying it's okay to stay there, then your subconscious is going to say, oh, it's okay for my future boss or my future best friends or my, future spouse. It's okay, for my neighbor to treat me in bad ways. And I said, I am
Right.
not signing up for that. I said, it's never okay. We treat each other with respect. We treat each other with love and kindness and tenderness. We need to have a servant's heart. And and so I just said, we're going to finish school somewhere else. And I thanked, I thanked him, and I said, say goodbye. And she said goodbye. And we got off, we got in our little car, and we're driving home. And she said, Ma, please don't homeschool me. And I was like, oh, I'm not going to homeschool. Yes, I'm opening a school.
Okay, well, first of all, can I just say, like, as your daughter, I would have been like, oh my gosh, mom, you were the best. Like, that was the best moment ever. So yay for you as a parent.
She
For
was just
up
like,
for her.
she's like, well, I got to finish seventh grade.
Right.
So,
I know. All they can see is just that little bit right there. But
oh yeah,
man,
because what you know is what you know.
right,
She
right.
didn't know anything else.
Yeah.
And I said, I promise you, by the fall, we'll have a small school started. At that time, the term, micro school, none of that stuff was around. It was just a starter place. And so I came home and I told my husband, I said, I'm opening a school. He goes, oh, okay. He's been on the journey with me in life. I started telling everybody, I'm opening a school. I'm opening a school.
And this was 2011, or was this 2010? 2011.
2010, 11. I graduated my first graduating class in 2011. And so it was a 10, 11 school year. And it was hilarious because I just started telling everybody I was opening a school. So
okay, in their defense, can I just say, Jan is a force. She is a force. And so we all know, if you've decided that it's happening, like, there isn't a question. I mean, no offense, but we're a lot alike, right? When I told Jeff, hey, I'm starting a podcast and I started my own coaching company, he's like, well, that's fine. Whatever makes you happy. He knows to just let me go. So we picked the right men. So that's good.
Well, yeah. And you surround the people who you need to be around. And the great thing was, all of a sudden I had someone calling me say, oh, by the way, so-and-so's son would like to talk to you about your school. I'm like, okay. Drove over to their house, talked about my dream. And they said to me at the end of it, like a 2-hour meeting, I'm petting their dog. and they said, we're going to let our child, Cody, he'll make a decision. So we'll get back with you. And I get in the car and I'm like, oh, that was interesting. And probably never going to hear from Cody, right? Telling him about a dream. Well, it was the 1st of August, and I'd been moving along, getting everything ready for the back of school. Had my daughter. At that point, I had another student that had been one of my tutoring clients, and when I had talked to that family, he was like, do I have to take my final exams? Can I just come over to your school now? And so I'm like, oh no, take your final exams and start school, in August. And then I get this call from the Cody kiddo, and he calls me, he goes, hey Jan, this is Cody. I go, hey, how are you? He said, well, I'm coming to the Einstein School. I had to pull my car over and stop. I felt like an arrow had pierced my heart. And I thought, wow, this is really serious. A child has left his private parochial school.
Right.
To come to something new. And he was going into 10th grade. I had 2 boys that were going into 10th grade. When my daughter had learned that this was really happening, she said, can you get a girl? And I need to get through 8th grade in the summer so I can do 9th grade, at least, because, some of the boys were going to do some remediation. So she was already trying to get ahead so that she could catch up to them. And
of course she was, because she's your daughter. Of course she was.
Well, and I found myself in a store. I found myself in a store, and I heard my husband go, and the gentleman's name was John. He goes, but John, don't you know my wife is opening a school? Your daughter can go to it. So I'm over there talking to him about the school. And on the first day of school, we opened with, let me think, I think it was 6 students. And every week I was bringing in more and more students. There was one really delightful young man that was a friend of that group of students. And he kept seeing me in like public places or at events at other families' houses, and he'd say, Miss Jan, I'd like to come to the Einstein School. I'm like, sure, have your parents contact me. Well, his dad was contacting me, but I was in a new email system and his messages were on page 1, and I didn't see page 1 because on my emails were coming up on page 2. When I finally found it, I was like, oh, I need to call him like right away. I'm like, hello. Oh, And he was like, I didn't think you wanted my son. And I'm like, oh my gosh, no.
Oh my gosh.
I was
Well, I
heartbroken.
just want to point this out too, because we have had extended family who have come to the Einstein School. Thank you, Einstein School, because you really did save them. They were in a place where they needed that one-on-one education, that customizable education that you guys provide. And it was invaluable to them, right, in the place where they were. But I just want to say, like, that is one of the most amazing things to me when we started to explore what was out there. And this was during the pandemic. So we had like,
Hard.
everything was on Zoom. So I was looking everywhere because I just thought, well, if we're not, it doesn't have to be right near me in Dripping Springs. Where could it be? Anyway, whole point is Jan and her team were so amazing. And I spoke with Jan first, like, is there any resources? Because I knew Jan would say, if they can't come in person, maybe there's this school or this. I knew you probably know with your networking ability and just how you think you would want whatever is best for that child, not, hey, I just want more students. You know what I mean? That mentality of you're just really out for the kid.
Oh yeah.
And what was so cool to me about it was, I mean, we really did look into several different schools. And the problem was with private schools was that they are really a lot of times competitive. So if you have a kid that's behind, or you have a kid that has special learning issues or whatever, or even a kid that's ahead probably too, but those schools want to compete for the smartest, brightest, they have the best stats, right? Is that correct? Am I correct on
Well,
that?
so what it is, in my opinion, is in some of the private parochial schools, their primary objective is first to build discipleship, which is what you would expect.
Sure.
You expect that. And then second is they want a very tight-knit described student because it's easier for scheduling. They're also looking at, okay, this at this IQ level, they're college bound. They're looking at those types of things. At Einstein, I am more interested in who the person is. Now, our kids are primarily average to mostly gifted and talented, but the reality is you're usually not a human that's gifted and talented in all subjects. So it's
Right.
kind of, a false statement to think that, you're at a school where everybody there is gifted in all subjects. So for Einstein, there are kids who have been bullied, kids who are unhappy in an environment where they're seeing that. They may not feel, comfortable in the larger classroom environment, speaking their opinions and views, because when they leave that classroom, they may not feel protected and safe. At Einstein, you are able to, as long as you can support your beliefs, we talk about it. It is no one here at Einstein. None of our jobs are to tell your children what to think. We want to listen. We want to talk. We want them to develop how they believe about things. What do they really think and why? And let's discuss it. And so that happens from as young as our fifth graders all the way through our 12th graders. I do have fifth and sixth grade students who are very solid in algebra already, but I will have some fifth and sixth graders who have also struggled, especially after the pandemic. So how do we customize, their school experience? And some seventh graders can start full-on high school classes, never to graduate early, but to be able to reach our most rigorous path of academics. And then, of course, there's no problem at all with somebody starting high school normally at ninth grade and just being in our honors levels. So we personalize the planning of each child's schedule and their, experience here at Einstein to help build the path with the most grit, but also without frustration. There is no reason children should be going to school and feeling stressed out. And if your child,
Amen.
no, if
Amen.
they're coming home with eons of hours of work, so that they're either they have to choose between eating a meal that's healthy with their family around the table or eating fast food because the parents have to drive them to 10 other places and they're doing homework in the school. You need to stop and say, what am I doing to this person? Are they going to be burned out by the time that they go to their freshman year of college? Our whole mission is to get them to graduate from college, not just get in. So,
Yes.
at Einstein, we're all
Well, and
behind.
also to thrive in life, to thrive in society, to thrive
Exactly.
as a family member. I think to me, one of the things that the pandemic did for everybody when we shut down was realize kind of how messed up we all were. And I mean, as a parent of, 4 children now, it's been kind of crazy to see them go through that process. I mean, I remember and my 3 of my own children that I have were very ahead always, and they always skipped math ahead and all that, and we had them in the public school system.
Yeah.
But the deal for me was, um, it sounds stupid because some parents who are struggling with a kid who's maybe struggling with dyslexia or whatever, I know that's a whole different ballgame. I was struggling because my kids were ahead, and they
Yes.
were all social, and
Oh,
so they were really social and ahead. So I had teachers that didn't know what to do with them. I had teachers that I had to coach through. Like I had to coach the teacher because they were a new teacher and didn't know how to entertain or give my kid enough assignments to help them. So I had to come up with ideas of what to feed them so that my kid could then go help other students or help other staff or go do a presentation on their own or whatever. Like it was, and so in a way, I felt like I had the reverse of what a lot of parents struggle with their kids not thriving. It was like my kids were gonna be troublemakers if I didn't do something,
yeah,
right?
exactly.
But I love that about you. I love that you have all well, first of all, you're just gifted. And I one of my things with the Dream Catalyst podcast and the Dream Catalyst coaching program is, I feel like it's so important for people to understand their God-given gifts and then go utilize them to help the world. And that may look like a volunteer job and that may look like your full-time job, but you have so many gifts. And one of your big gifts, I feel like, is identifying the strengths of each individual and then helping them to thrive in those strengths, not just, hey, you're really weak in these 3 zones and they are terrible. Let's totally freak out about that. It's like, no, I mean, every person has their special talents and we just have to find that in them. And I love that you do that. And that molds them into a place where they can go so much further, so much faster because they have someone not only like you that believes in them and the teachers that surround them believe in them, but they have parents that can finally see, okay, even though my kid isn't like typical or whatever, or my kid is not thriving in this environment, look how he can thrive, right? Like, I feel like we're missing that. Well, and for me, like, one of the things that was hilarious always was I had parents, I mean, truth, I have witnesses who would try to talk me into holding my boys back for sports. And I was
Oh,
like, look, my kids are the youngest in their class, and I know they're not as developed as these other kids because they're, age-wise behind, but their minds are already ahead. Like, if I hold them back further, you know how much trouble that would be? It would be trouble for me. It'd be trouble for the teachers. It'd be trouble for
everybody.
them.
Mhm.
Like, it just wasn't right, and I know, I mean, God bless Texas and football and all that jazz, but I was like, there's no way my kids can stay back. So I love that you can treat all of it. Like I feel like you know I don't know, you just have this gift to identify it in each kid and then pull it out. And that customizable curriculum and the teachers talk a little bit about the teacher quality that you have because I mean, let's be clear, Jan. I have so much respect for teachers, especially today. I know so many amazing people that are still teaching in spite of all the crazy pandemic and all the aftermath of that and the way the students are and the way the system is and the way the parents are. I feel like, and it's one of the reasons this podcast was born, right? I feel like everybody's kind of worn out and beat down. But talk to me about the teachers and how you work with them, how you find them, I mean, how did you even go about that?
Well, every teacher goes through a process in the interview, and we're looking for key attributes. Um, so I've got about 55 employees, and in my teaching staff, the probably the ratio is almost near 50-50 male female, which we draw, it seems, high percentage of male teachers want to come work at Einstein. But the common denominator is they want to be involved in the creative part of building curriculum. So we have a system on how we build our curriculum, and the teachers are given some freedom to be able to build it within a scope of guidelines. Our the I think and we also work within sort of teams. You'll see we have that same commonality that you see in a public or in other school environments, but we are not tied to only meeting the state standards.
Right.
So we're able to.
Whereas a public school is because they have to. Right.
And also, and listen, I'm not here to say bad things about public school, because our public school system is pretty darn good, but not every child fits it. And
Yes.
so, your really inquisitive thinkers have questions. And in some districts, the teacher literally has to read the words on the page for that day of teaching. And if they even change the vocabulary that they're using, they get in trouble for that. So our whole focus is about, diving and creating a much more deeper thinking opportunity for our students. And it drives a creative environment for our teachers to work in. So I feel very blessed to have the teachers that we have, as we're talking about, how God sort of, impacts our lives, and how we, kind of know that we're on the right path for us. It's amazing, because I may start having thoughts about certain courses that I want to develop for our school that are unique to Einstein, or I might be worrying about, if I'm transitioning a teacher maybe out of our school for, whatever reason, about certain classes that I wanted, to build. The next thing I know, I've got somebody either knocking on my door, or I've already hired somebody who maybe I didn't even know all of the, depth of some of their background. A good, example of this is, for about 2 years, about 3 years ago, we started working on our international visa opportunities. So I wanted to have kids that had an opportunity to come here to the United States and be a part of a small school. It would adjust our, a little bit in our culture, and it'd be great for our students to have that international connection. But I was worrying about, but then we have language barrier and blah, 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 blah. So I had hired 2 or 3 teachers, not really realizing how much English as a second language background they had, and how that would be a huge, impact, for an international student maybe coming and it's not their first language. I do have 3 international students joining us, in the fall, which I'm really excited about.
Right.
But ironically, one is from the Cayman Islands, English speaking.
Wow.
From Australia, English speaking. And another is a girl from China that had been in a U.S. school for a year. So she's very strong in her English speaking. So that's kind of a gift. I hadn't even thought about the international students that were going to be speaking English. I was thinking about all the ones that don't. But also along that journey, we started receiving, we're 5th grade through 12th. So I started receiving more students in the last 2 years, really since pandemic and almost since the recovery of pandemic, that parents were in middle school are sort of abandoning their middle school classrooms and trying to find something else. And then on top of that, some of the families that are international families that are here, under work visas, or maybe they had, they're U.S. citizens, but it might be a first generation, family. So maybe the parents went to schools outside the country. There's another growing population within our program. And what I am recognizing is it's the way Einstein builds curriculum and how we think. Families recognize that our world is a much smaller place than it was 10 years ago, 20 years ago.
Agreed.
So the connection of having, a more international community within our school, it's growing, and it's made such a huge impact on the discussions that we have in class, because all these people are from different backgrounds and they have different faith. And frankly, there are some families that don't have a faith.
Right.
And so,
Sure.
but it's okay. We're all part of the world that we live in, and these children have an opportunity to really have some great discussions. And it was last Christmas, and we decorate for a variety of faiths. And there was somebody who walked down the hall, and they said to me, we had some menorahs and symbols up that were that would celebrate some of our Jewish community. And somebody said to me, "Wow, this is fantastic. I've seen these other, groups represented, and here's this group represented. And how must that feel to these children who are coming from other environments that didn't recognize that these other faiths existed? And it made me stop for a minute, and I'm like, oh yeah, I guess you're right about that. But we are a non-judgmental community. We
Right.
believe that everybody should be accepted, and unless you are, unless it's hate, and we're obviously not going to accept that. But we want to help all children thrive. And so our younger students started really arriving. The fifth grade students early on in our business were to support and help families that had younger children. I mean, my whole focus in the beginning was build a high school and graduate kids to go to college so that they can graduate from college, and they can not have to suffer through a high school experience that's really not meant for them. So I cherish, every student that's walked through this door. And we've had kids graduate from our school that started off at a young age. And I've had kids who started and we got them where they needed to be, and they thought they needed to go to somewhere bigger. And I was happy to help them get there. And so that's, I think if you're doing it for the child, then that child is a really big part of our team, and understanding what everyone's goals are for their experience here at Einstein. And I tell parents, if your child doesn't want to be here, then I can't accept them. No matter how much I want them here, how much you want them here, if we're not the fit for them, and they have to know it in their gut, it's better for them to come when they're ready. And so I'm really excited. We're going to meet in the fall about 300 students as we open our doors for back to school. I know it's God-given. Yeah, it's fantastic.
Okay, well, so you were talking about, what I call God flow, right? Being in God flow, where you have this idea, and then all of a sudden, like the people that you already had in your surroundings, like had that, whatever language ability, or do you feel like also, because I just want to encourage everybody that you also had a lot of hurdles to overcome, right? I mean, it wasn't like all easy. It's not like all God flow. It's like you hit all these mountains that you have to climb back over and figure it out. But God puts the right people in your path, right? So that you can navigate it. But I think back and I just go, if I'd known, like even the last 4 years, Jan, which have been like 4 Jerry Springer seasons. That's my little back to back to back. If I'd known 4 years ago what I was going to go through, I would not have been. I mean, there's no way I would have been okay. You know what I mean? It's just really hard. So talk about just that, the mountains that you had to climb and a little bit of the hard stuff, but also I'm sure how you got through, right? You made your way through it.
Absolutely. The best way I describe it to people is that you're stuck with this, you're struck one day and you start thinking about something that begins to be building inside you. So when I had my tutoring business, when I work with my preschoolers, you get passionate about what you're doing. And then I started thinking about people saying to me, well, you should open a school. And I'm like, oh, you gotta be crazy. That's a lot. But it was there. There were the seeds. And then eventually it just pops out of you. Like it did that day. There was an event that occurred that it popped out of me. I'm going to open a school. Okay. Now the world knows what I've been thinking, and I've been pondering this, and I'm just going to go do it. I am truly the pie maker. If you look at, the entrepreneurial kind of story, because I didn't sit down originally and say, do I have this? Do I have this? Do I have this? Do I have this? Some of it was, let's just jump into the deep end. We're going to swim our way and we're going to make it. And, but it's not a 9-to-5 job.
No, never is when you own your own business. Never is.
No, it never is. And I only am consumed, with the thinking about everything that, I want to have happen. It's not that I'm consumed with like these tasks that have to get done. It's like these need to be done because it's what we have to do. We're opening a school. And if you're opening a school, you have to do these things. It's like, what do you mean? I should not work over the weekend. What do you mean? I had to be home before midnight. I don't understand why. I'm setting up classrooms.
Well, you wake up excited, you go to bed excited.
I mean,
you're tired. you're really, really tired, but
but
at the same
happy.
time, it's like,
Yeah.
yes, it should be a joyful journey, even though there's challenges, even though
Oh
you
gosh,
have
there's gonna
no
be challenge.
idea.
There's
Yeah,
challenges, there's heartache, there's difficult times, there's problems that have to be solved, but building your team around you. You are not somebody, or at least me, I don't know it all. So I have an attorney that's not my husband, because he is in the legal world. I have an attorney that's a specialist, and that firm has all different types of attorneys, including educational lawyers. I have a nonprofit CPA firm, and I work with them, and they do my payroll, they do my taxes, they do all of those things that make sure that I'm being compliant, because I have to outsource. Those were positions that a school, to have the caliber that are people that we need, I wouldn't be able to afford them as full-time, employees. So I outsource, right? And, as the school grew, um, I needed to bring in my own cleaning team. So in the beginning, it was COVID. Joan and I, we knew some people from that industry, and I hired them as a company. And eventually, it was not affordable for me to use them as a company. I needed to bring in my own people, so I hired two people, and I have my own cleaning team here. So,
right.
so as you begin, to start looking at like the fundamentals of running the business, well, I have a team. I mean, I have to have a principal, and I have a director of operations, and I have a director of health and well-being, and all these different roles that become into play. And
You
I
grow
always
with it. You grow with it.
you grow with it, and you hire people who know more than you,
Yes.
because you're going to be a team that has to collaborate. And so one of the and I've always had a business coach, and at my business coach would work with our team, and we built our core values, and we did all these things that were the business structure of running a school. And then I wake up one day, and my husband said to me, I think I want to leave corporate America, and I might want to teach. And I'm like, okay. So I'm like, where do you want to teach? And he wasn't saying the Einstein School. And so I'm like, well, wait a minute. I know you. And I said, I think if you want to teach, and he was wanting to open up a small practice. I said, why don't you come on board at Einstein, but open up a foundation that will help us reach our goals, and, kind of come in and be all in. And I said, I have office space there that you can use, and you can run your other, little practice over there. And so we're all in. And I looked at him, I said, and guess what? You're going to be able to teach constitutional law and negotiations for juniors and seniors.
How perfect. How perfect.
I'm thinking, this is the best thing ever. I've got, somebody that, and I said, and we were growing. And so he was thrilled to be able to teach that and continue doing what he was wanting to do. And then he's just kind of brought in, this whole flavor into the school. But I was able to look at him, and I'm like, okay, I'm constantly thinking about what I have to do for this year, what I need to do next year, what am I doing 3 years out, what's happening 5 years, what's happening 10 years, what's my 15, 20-year plan. I'm never living in the year that we're in right now. And I said to him, I said, I need help. I need somebody who can take on a lot of my business, the aspects of the business, scorecards, and giving feedback to employees. Oh, that's boring. But we need to do it, and I recognize that. So I've got somebody who helped me write those scorecards and helped me run my True North meeting that we do once a week. And he put in all those infrastructure. And what's really quite amazing is, we married when we were in our master's programs in college, and we moved here to Texas, and he went to a corporate job that he was in, and I was doing my entrepreneurial things. And we basically met around the dinner table, and raised our kids and had a great family life. And he really somehow got very, very smart over all those years. And I looked at him, and I'm like, well, I need to like let my coach go because you know more than him. And it was such a wonderful experience. We drive to work in two separate cars. We leave at different times. We're at opposite ends of the building. We're lucky if we see each other over the week. People wonder, like, how is that going to be to work together? And it has been the most remarkable experience, because it's somebody that I trust the people that I work with and the people that I hire. But when you're running a small business, you really have to trust the people that have access to spending the money. And
Yes.
you can be caught off guard if you've got somebody who doesn't spend the money like you want to spend it. And I've always had to keep, tight reins on how we do that, because we operate on the revenue that we bring in for our tuition. So as we grow, there's a lot of needs, and salaries have had to go up, and there's a lot that's happening, in the world that we live in. And having my husband be a part of the leadership and also be a coach to us. I've got, somebody else, in the ranks that's able to take on some of the business pieces that I was having to do. And it's not the things that I love. So what I learned about myself back in the days when I had my tutoring business was, I want to be with the families. I want to use my talent, and I want to have that impact on every family that walks through the door. So I am not turning over, oh, somebody else can interview, the families, and somebody else can look at the paperwork on why we accept somebody and why we don't. I don't turn that over at all, because the impact of who we bring in and in the community that we are offering a seat in it's very important to have the right fit.
Amen.
And so at this stage of where we are, that's something that I need to spend a lot of time on. But I also need to be I'm visionary. So I have to be able to dream big, but I don't want to do all the details. That's not my gift. So I have other people who handle that their gift is details. And so,
Thank God for the other people. Thank God for them.
yes. The relationship part, that I tell families and children that come to our doors, we can teach you anything that you want to learn. I can make it as hard as you need it to be. If you need it to be more, you need me to turn it back a little bit, I can get you where you need to be ready for the next stage of learning. But it's really important to come and get involved in the social community.
Yes.
So
But can we talk a little bit about that? Because you've gone through COVID, and I've heard from teachers, like it really is like a big slump and everyone's coming out of that. Can you talk a little bit about kind of what happened or what you're seeing now, and like what we as parents, or let's just say there's high school students out there that just are not feeling like there's hope or there's a way forward? Like, can you talk a little bit about how
well,
you're giving them hope back,
yeah, well, absolutely. COVID really damaged society. We have 12 years of age of kids who are in school during COVID. The ripple of that is another 10, 12 years to get them, completely through all of the damages that happen with COVID. And female versus male, they really experienced the emotional part of COVID very differently. And there are children who came out of COVID just riddled with anxiety, the stress of it, the worry. So when we when we when we realized that, okay, wait a minute, this thing called COVID coming to the United States, what are we going to do? We took a pause, like a lot of schools across the country. It was during the spring break. We took an additional week and we told our families, just pause. We're going to have a plan. And we have Canvas as a learning platform. So I pulled my talented young teachers that had been, really out of college within a few years, who had been doing a lot of, online learning. I pulled them over maybe teachers who had been in colleges before online learning. And I remember we sequestered ourselves in a room, and I sat and I talked to them about all my worries and all my concerns about what was going to happen to our children by putting them, on online, learning for how long. And so we came out, and I had my team lead were like knocking on the door. Hello, I'm a team lead. Shouldn't I be in the meeting? And I'm like, no, you don't need to be in the meeting. We'll come back. Just write curriculum. I don't need you right now. Trust me, we're gonna be okay. And so I sat with the team that I put together, and I really talked about, I'm worried we're going to create kids who are addicted to online experiences, gaming, online communication. We're going to have kids who don't want to have their pictures in a camera online. We're going to have everything that we can think of and so much more. So our school went into a mode to have sort of your core subjects, which is English, math, history, science, foreign language. You would meet those teachers on a Monday, Wednesday, Friday schedule. On a Tuesday, Thursday were your electives. And in the beginning, we kind of like reduce some of the curriculum to reduce some of the pressure. Our leadership team, we were meeting every day on a Zoom call at 4:30, and we were kind of like going through like all the problems that were coming to us because parents were reaching out, and at one point our gifted families were like, we need more, just like what your story was. And I had other families saying we need less, and so we were really having to be reactive to all of that. It was so fantastic when that semester ended and we were able to go back, in person. And that summer we went back in person. We went, even into the next school year, we were in person. About the first year, maybe, more than 50% came back, on campus. It was fantastic. We still did the Zoom connections. We transformed what we were doing within the building. And then the next year, all the kids came back, but maybe 1%. And so what we found is that some of our COVID strategies were something that we wanted to continue using. There were some that we had gotten accustomed to, and we forgot to get rid of them. So the next year we started getting rid of them. But what we learned is, I think families who were in classrooms where there were maybe 25 or 30 students, they were like, wow, wait a minute. I understand what my child's saying when they come home from school. They never get this attention, or, there were kids, misbehaving. And not that they maybe would be a misbehaving student if they were in person, but the online created a different dynamic for them. So I think parents, for the first time, got a glimpse at what a classroom teacher within a large classroom environment has to endure. And
that's where I go. I have so much respect for all of them,
yes,
because
I do
like
too.
the level of stuff that they have to put up with now versus pre-COVID
Oh
is
yeah,
ridiculous in the classroom. I mean, it's crazy. Even my own kids, like I happened to see and went, when did you have time to do your nails? And she said, I did it during class. And I was like, what? Like, what teacher lets you do her nails in class? And isn't that distracting? She's like, well, it's not, it's no more distracting than putting on body lotion. I'm like, yes, it is. And I just thought, what is going on? That the environment is such that they don't care if you do your nails in class. Like, what? Like, it just didn't make sense to me. So
no
I
doubt.
cannot even imagine all the stuff you guys have all had to go through. I mean, public, private, all of you.
All of
Like,
it, all of it. And
how many
we
teachers we've lost? We've lost over it, right?
and during COVID, that was everyone's problem. I mean, some of the teachers that were available during the COVID period were maybe not people that you would have normally hired. So
Right.
once you are fully back, then there's that transformation of people who you're removing from your teaching system and bringing in higher quality, and we've been back to a really nice balance, and our population is growing. We have been able to continue adding great teachers to our community. I've got teachers with multiple undergraduate degrees, multiple masters, multiple, PhD, type of degrees, just, who come from all these different fantastic, walks of life, and building that and incorporating it into the culture of the school, and really being purposeful on how we expand with this, just makes the whole environment more enriching, and the enrichment of what happens in the classroom with the kids. So
Well, and maybe because of your school environment being so amazing, you didn't have what I'm talking about, but the fun, I mean, you probably did to some extent, the funk that the kids went through. I mean,
kids went through it.
everybody went through it, but
We started
how do you bounce back from that, Jan? How do you get those kids to believe in
well,
themselves and connect in person and do all the things? Like, how did you manage
yeah,
that?
so we started off with doing a missing assignments report. It was something really simple. And we were like, okay, wait a minute. This kid here would never have had missing assignments, but then all of a sudden now we have this many. So we started working, with helping track that more and being very intentional on getting those missing assignments turned in, what's going on with the student, helping. We just had to add more help, with that. Then
Well,
as we
and I know you in the sense that I'm just gonna, sorry to interrupt you, but
no,
as a parent, I know how you are. And I just want to say out loud that as a parent, one of the things that I always valued was having my kid let this be their experience and not be the parent that was intervening all the time. So I know when you say we give a missing report, you're not saying to the parent to say, hey, get your kid to do this. You're giving it to the kid to say, this is your life. This is your path. This is your journey. You have to own it, right? I mean, am I right?
right. And
Yeah.
and we're letting them, I mean, at Einstein, something that's important to know is we all go by first name. So we have sort of removed some of that formality. So a student here at any given moment has the permission to walk into my office and come talk to me about something. So we take down some barriers. Well, the missing assignment report allowed us to have all the teachers to have the information about who was missing assignments in which classes and how can they help. Hey, I know you have a missing assignment in math. Let's get that in. And something else that we did is we expanded our lunchtime. Our lunchtime is a 45-minute period, just like a classroom period is. We do 45-minute classes. So that lunchtime allowed for clubs, activities, interaction with their peers, but they could just straight up socialize. They didn't have to be in a club and have lunch and be really busy. They could just socialize if they wanted to. And we knew after we came back from the pandemic, the kids were really thirsty to be with each other. Even if it was
Yes.
just to sit beside each other and not talk. In the beginning, some kids just wanted to sit beside each other, eat their lunch, and look at one another.
I
And
remember being like that. Like we used to gather in our cul-de-sac and hang out at somebody's backyard
yeah,
because we were dying to interact, and we did it outside, but we were like, this is crazy. Like I don't thrive without people. So we had to
exactly.
figure out ways to make it happen. So I can't even imagine in school.
No, at school it
And
was so hard. And
still
and so our
phones and
students.
social media, did you take that away from them or what did you do?
So phones and social media. It's
I
just
know.
a
I know that might be a whole other podcast.
it's a whole podcast on its own. But what we do is we don't allow students to use their phones and their social media during class. So that we put it back on the teachers. Another piece was to really monitor that. But if your class is engaging, if you're having great discussions, if you know your student and you're really teaching and pulling it in and out of them, they don't want to be on their phones.
Right.
They
Right.
don't. So where we find that communication and using social media between class periods or during that lunchtime, we have to help the parents understand your child doesn't need to answer your phone call or your text message during class.
Yes.
That's
And I've seen people like they hang those like shoe holders on
yes.
the door and make the kids put the things. And I'm like, why aren't they doing that all the time? That seems like that should just be first line of defense. Like everyone put your stuff away. Like it's time to concentrate on science or whatever, right? And
Exactly.
engage with this subject. But
Right.
I mean, that's a whole nother story because I
But
know, yeah,
and what I want to say is, as a family, you have to really live the rules. What I can tell you that I'm seeing, and it's really refreshing, is my lower school families, many of the students are not coming to school. They don't have a phone.
oh, that's
It's really
amazing.
refreshing. It's like, oh, you're one of the special ones. And it's fantastic
Yeah.
because they don't allow that noise that, many years ago, I was in some training class and it was talking about email at the time. That if you sat in front of your computer and you're doing your work and you continually just answer those emails, you're allowing someone to just walk in and interrupt your thinking and interrupt your day. Why are you doing that? Well, the email came. I need to answer it. It's like, well, I don't have to answer it right now. You can answer it later. Just like if they left you a voice message. So we're really working on and trying to help kids understand that whatever's knocking on their door through social media, that you have a responsibility to say, I'm going to put it over here, and in a later time respond to it during a period of time that's good for that.
It's
And
amazing.
parents have got to support it. Mhm.
Well, and I would imagine in the type of environment that you have created that the kids would naturally bounce back faster. I mean, with the social connection with the teachers, with the engagement in the classes. And, one of the things I love about you, Jan, is something that I teach in coaching all the time, which is, be ferociously curious about everything, about people, about, like I always taught my business owners, like, you should know every business owner in town. Like, if you don't, you need to go introduce yourself. That needs to be part of the process. Like, why don't you, right? So that's
And
really interesting because I'm about to do a workshop for high school students. So I'll have to talk to you about that off camera. But I think there's so much that we can teach them that this gap has left this thing. And we've got to help all these kids figure this out.
yeah. And it's really interesting, like what you're talking about. You have to know, this huge network of people. And it's really interesting when you start seeing how wide the net has been cast when you have years of it. Um, I had an employee coming home from a summer trip, and she's sitting next to somebody who is connected to somebody that I know, and as the conversation, they're like, "Well, Jan Van Blarcum," and that's really an interesting piece, because as you grow your business and you're getting to make an impact in a community, as you want to build, your reputation, you have to really protect that.
Yes.
And you need to be out networking and being very focused, but you also need to understand, like, okay, what am I going to allow my time to be a part of? Because you also don't want to confuse the community on what do you do. So for many years, as I had transitioned out of the tutoring into the school, I would still get all this stuff. So it took me some time to sort of kind of shut down those that vehicle of thinking, to get that community thinking about the school. And it's really a dynamic. I mean, it's amazing. I think there was some statistic about every person, small business owner, needs to know about 250 people when they start their business. You can easily write that down. I mean, it's thousands of people now.
It's
And
thousands.
with
It's
the
thousands.
way we interact, within our community, I'm very lucky. I have a full-time employee that manages all of my networking now. And she'll come in and she'll go, Jan, I met somebody. I'll say, oh, tell them hi next time. I haven't seen them in ages. But the thing is that when you develop those relationships, I don't have to see Joan Daniels, every week. But if Joan Daniels is going to call me, or I'm going to call you, we're going to answer that call, because
Yeah.
even though we might not be able to see everybody, we understand what your character is. We understand, the work ethic. So as we begin to maybe bring ourselves more into working in our business versus on it, and that's a whole nother discussion about, the stages that you're, when you're building. I'm in that building of, I'm working in it, but I'm privileged with the staff that I have that allows me to be able to work on it, and I can contribute, to time like that. But I wouldn't be able to do that if I was doing all these other pieces. So, you grow.
Yeah. And you were just describing literally what is in my mind of what I'm going to be teaching high school students here, just some of that connection networking piece that,
So important.
I've taught to business owners for years, and really our kids are missing that. Like, I have a theater kid, right, who loves to be on stage, but if we're at a restaurant, he doesn't want to ask for ketchup, and I'm like, you've lived with me. How can you not know that it's okay to ask for ketchup? But it's that COVID shutdown time. Like, even though they have that, internet connection, that's not a personal connection, and they have lost that ability somehow. And so, yeah. So I'll have to talk to you more about that, because that was like a whole, like, you literally were taking stuff out of my head and saying it out loud. That's so amazing. Well, so let's talk real quick about what's next, because I already know, like, I got on your website and saw the amazing NASA award that you guys just got.
Yeah, two
So
years in a row now.
Oh my gosh, I didn't know 2 years in a row.
Yeah, two
Okay,
years
so
in a row now.
explain that real quick because people are going to be blown away. I mean,
So
here's Jan.
I'm gonna say
But now we're like,
many
oh, you got to flip your hair. We don't have any hair to flip, but
many years ago, I created a vision board, and on my vision board, I put NASA on there and space, and how there will be a student of mine that will impact space someday.
oh my
And
God.
there were some people who looked at me and were like, "Oh, Jan, you should dream big, but is that a little bit too big for you? I think you should like bring your vision board down a notch." I was like, "What do you mean? No, no dream is too big.
Way,
That dream's
way.
not big enough.
It's
I
too
should have
big.
gone to
I
another
agree.
galaxy."
Yeah.
So
We're big thinkers. We're big thinkers.
year before last, I had a fantastic team of kids who participated in the NASA Hunch competition. There are 30 categories, 3,000 kids per category across the nation. And our team that year, we worked on the solar category. And 42 teams eventually make it all the way to NASA, which we did. I was like, wow. I'm thinking like, we were just going to participate, but I'm like, we actually are showing up for the party. And
So
so
awesome.
they got to NASA and they won. And what they have is 5 teams nationwide win first place. And your experiment goes to the International Space Station on the Artemis mission, and NASA astronauts are going to be running experiments with it. So ours was a solar tracker, and it locates solar energy 100% of the time in space, which is kind of complicated on how to do that. And it is
Kind
really,
of. It's just kind of complicated.
it's just kind of complicated. Yeah, just kind of complicated. But the cool thing is it is to help run the rovers, on the moon. Well, fast forward this past school year, I looked at my teams. I had 2 teams, participating this year, and I said, "Okay, guys, I just want you to participate. Just give it your all. This is about the fun of learning." And we were lucky, a little bit of luck along with, some great ingenuity. We came in at first, but yeah, I just want you to have a good year. So one of my students who had been in the winning team came to me one day, and I was in the hall with it, and I said, "Hey, how are your NASA Hunch teams going?" And he goes, the team that I'm in, we're probably not going to make it, I said, "That's okay. You had a good experience." He goes, "Yeah." And he would tell me about it. He said, "But the other team, I think they're going." I'm like, "Oh, really?" Tell me about it. And he said, "I'm hearing things like, oh, we've never seen this idea before." Oh, that's interesting. So in our biomedical, we made it back, and it was in 1 of 5. And
Wow.
so we've got 2 years of NASA Hunch projects going to space. And
That is amazing. That's
I'm just
amazing.
like,
I would have guessed it. I would have guessed it 10 years ago if you told me, because I know how amazing you are and how
well,
amazing children.
it's on my vision board.
Hallelujah for saying that out loud, because I had a podcast. You probably haven't even watched it, but I had a podcast that I talked about a vision board or a vision book. And it is amazing how many
Oh,
people create those. And then years later, you look back, go, oh my gosh, I had 3 children. I had 3 of my own children in a vision book. And I really only wanted 2, but I picked a picture with 3. And I literally opened my vision book like 5 years later. And Jeff goes, "It's your fault. You put it on your vision board, Joan." So it really, I mean, I've heard the craziest stories about vision boards. So that is so cool. So
well,
cool. Congratulations.
what I believe is that when you sit down and people create the business plans. I was very fortunate to be a part of, along the journey, the 10,000 small business Goldman Sachs program. And I was able to take all the dreams and work that I've done before, and I was able to put it into the business model, and which I think is important, but the vision board piece is part of that creative thinking, of a new business owner or just an entrepreneur in general. It gives you permission to create something colorful and beautiful that means something to you. But what it also does is it solidifies it in your psyche.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So,
Reticular
so
activating system is now looking for those things.
absolutely. So
Yes.
when an opportunity presented itself for us to be a part of this NASA program, I'm like, heck yeah, we're doing it. But I wasn't at the moment thinking, oh, this is my kiddo going to space. But
Right.
but I was like, well, we're impacting space. But what's interesting is the kids from the 2 different years, I mean, they want to be astrophysicists.
It's amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah. So
Amazing.
I'm just looking at it. I'm like, one day that's gonna, I'm gonna see one of them on some documentary with NASA. I know it.
Well, and I just have to say out loud that, like one of my things, and I've said this, I think already in a previous podcast, but is just like, I want to be done and I want to go to heaven, with God and literally be like, okay, I did all the things I could do. And not that I'm going to be perfect, not that it's going to look perfect, but like I checked off most of the things that I was capable of doing that God had for me, and I didn't miss it, right? I didn't miss it. And so I love your big thinking. I love your big dreaming. I can only imagine what that does to kids to be around you in that kind of space where they're allowed to think huge and to be curious and to ask questions and not to be in some system that's just, for the state exams or whatever. So I can only imagine like the amazing impact when you get there, like all the ripple effects of what you've done. I mean,
and
what
it's
an amazing
interesting.
person you are.
It's
And
interesting.
what an amazing school you've created.
What's
Honestly.
interesting about this conversation, Joan, is, I say prayers every night, and I'm just seeking help, help me fulfill the mission that has been given to me. It's an important mission.
Yes.
And I'm grateful that I've been tagged for it.
Yes.
And I hope when I pass, I'm probably going to be 100 years. I always joke that at the Einstein School there'll be a blue zone for all of us who live to 100.
Ooh,
Because
wouldn't that be
I have
cool?
I have so much to do. I can't even imagine being. I mean, I'm not going to be finished, but I'm going to turn it over to someone at that point, I guess. But I want to go exhausted because I've done everything that I could physically and emotionally and mentally come up with to do and be a part of this, mission. And I think the piece about the school is creating something that is sustaining forever. We're a nonprofit 501c3. Our nonprofit status is forever. So we have to really be respectful of what that is. And
Right.
I have to build the team of people who will be the ones that take over to the next stage of leadership. And so I'm always watching and looking and trying to find exactly the right people for it. But I also have grown to learn that there are people that are in our program and are great for where we are right now, and they will grow to where we're going to be. There are also people that have been just really great right now, but I know that they probably can't stretch themselves to grow to where I need them to be. And I
Right.
have to open up room for God to deliver the people that need
Yes.
to be here for the next step. So
Yeah.
I've learned that those
That's a
relationships,
huge thing, just right there, that you will have people that are with you for life and you'll have people that are with you for seasons.
that's
And that's
right.
okay. And that's a good thing because they are also, I said this earlier in a podcast, Jan, from birth to death, I feel like is just one big classroom. Like we're just learning. And
Yeah.
so people are going to
Awesome.
weave in and out of your life and it's good. That's a good
Yeah,
thing.
absolutely.
But it's also, I think you are one of those people that like me goes, I don't mind failing. Like I don't mind going flat on my face, but I do want to get back up and keep going because I want to learn from it and I don't want to make the same mistake again. And
Yeah.
I jokingly say, God will whisper and then he'll nudge and then he'll hit me with the 2x4. And I'm usually on the 2x4 on the floor before I get it. So I keep hoping that by the time I'm 100 and I'm done, that I have gotten to the whisper stage,
I know.
2x4 stage. But
And
you're
and
always,
that
I'm sure you encourage your students, like you got to fail forward. Like the whole process is about learning. It's not failure, it's learning, right?
that's right. That's right. That's why we don't do rote memorization of facts.
Yeah.
That's
Because
just
what does that get?
regurgitating.
Yeah.
You've got to know what you know. And what you're saying is really important, Joan, because um, people need to understand that we are human. We have dreams. We think at some points you think I know what I'm doing and I got this. It's like, that's when you need to say, wait a minute, forgive
Right.
me. I don't know
Right.
what I'm doing and I don't have this. So
Never.
help me.
Yeah. And I've grown up with my kids telling them, you're never going to arrive. You're never going to be at a pinnacle that then is the end all be all, because there's always another climb. Like, it
Mhm.
never ends. So stop thinking at this age or at this age. In fact, my son Casey said yesterday, he said, I always thought kids going off to college had it all together. And I said, but you've heard me say this so many times. And he's like, now that I'm going off to college, I realize nobody knows what they're doing. I was like, welcome to 52. Nobody knows what they're doing. At 82, they probably don't know what they're doing. Like, we are all just learning. Like, quit comparing yourself and just start running your race and doing what you can do, and working in those God gifts and
Yeah,
talents.
and
And
if people can stop and realize that, and my kids, I have this expression that and it's this is kind of sort of dark sounding, but I don't mean it to be that dark. But when they're like stressed out over something, and the end of the world is coming because XYZ was happening, and or they're emotional, and I get a phone call in the night and they're crying about something, I'll go, wait a minute, has somebody died?
right,
Did something
get some
happen?
perspective.
Yeah, did something happen? Were you a part of something that is irreversible? Well, no, mom. Of course not, mom. And but then okay, take it notch. The worry is a fake movie in your brain.
Yes.
So okay, let's stop. What are the facts? What's real? What was the things that maybe you did that you're not proud of?
Right.
Because we have to understand those things and why that happened. Let's work through it. And take that deep breath. And you know if you can grow through experiences and be proud of the work that you've done, and with the experience that you have, and take from it and step to the next level, you're doing everything that you need to do. You should just don't waste your time on worry.
Right. What
Worry
a
is
waste.
about things that haven't happened yet. Now, what you can say, and I worry. I was joking the other day.
Course.
We have a mutual friend, Lori Gaines Peterson, who
Yes, love her, love her.
and we're kind of verbal mentors with each other. And she's out of the country right now. And I was like, how dare her go out of the country right now? This is my worry season, and I need to call her and worry about something. So I got to call her when she gets back and say, I had to wait to worry. But you need that person also that kind of helps, right, put you back in the right space. And you have to also guard the people who are the naysayers. There are
Yes.
people who love you more than anything in the world, and they're the ones that are going to say, hey, be careful, don't do that.
Caution, caution.
I don't want you.
Joan,
And
what are you doing?
what do you,
I'm
exactly?
experiencing that now.
Well, and what they don't is they don't want you to be hurt.
Right. They're just
They
trying to
love you
protect
so
you.
much, they don't want you to hurt. And you have to know that, and you have to be strong enough to say, I understand you don't want me to hurt, but I'm doing this and I need your support. And
Well, and you and I think we've trained ourselves to listen to, whether you want to call it the voice of God, the Holy Spirit, whatever you want to call it, that inner knowing that says, this is what I'm doing. Like, we know that voice. So we know that it's right. And you can feel it. You can feel it in your gut that it's right. It's that God flow kind of feeling, but it's only your feeling. So nobody else can feel that. Right. But I also jokingly say, homeless Bob, that was one of my mentors, one of my coaches used to say, homeless Bob in your head wants you to be homeless too. So there's also that voice in your head trying to stop you, right? Or trying to say, well, who are you to start a school or a podcast, Joan? And what do you know? And right. So it's funny how it's not just the people outside. You got to battle the ones inside your head too, and put that away and go, no, I'm doing this, and I'm going to trust that the next 100 feet will be shown to me as I need it. Right. But I so agree with you. Having those touchstone people, those power partners that
really important.
get your vision, believe in you, stand in the gap. I mean, that's what I do as a coach too. But to have those friendships where you have those people, that's
Oh,
invaluable.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. and
priceless.
and if you don't have those, you need to
I
be
said invaluable.
mindful.
That was so
mi-
valuable. Sorry, I know you're a teacher. That was
no, 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 no. But you need to be mindful of the people that you put in those seats.
right.
And I have a prior employee that was a superintendent of school districts, and he's in one of those seats that I pick up the phone and call him. Even when he was an employee here, I would call him into my office and I'd go, okay, he'd been superintendent of school districts. I mean,
Right.
I mean, his career was phenomenal, and he was working at Einstein. And I would say, okay, I want you to put on your, this other hat. You're not the employee. Let's talk about this. And I was able to have some of that, experience. So I look at people around me who have different types of experience, and I try to utilize them. But I also try to give back when people are reaching out to me.
You
And then
always,
you
you
have
always
to,
have that
yeah,
mindset, that give back
you
mindset. Yeah,
you look at that, you have to look at that, and you have to say, is this somebody that I feel like I can be there for the long haul? So I'm careful not to stretch too thin, but I absolutely give back. And I think it's important because we wouldn't be able to help. We need to help the next generation of young people trying to do the things that we're doing and feeling the
absolutely.
confidence to be able to do that.
Well,
Mhm.
I'm so excited we got a chance to talk. Tell people real quick, how can they reach you? How can they find the Einstein School?
So you can find us online at einsteinschool.com. And you can also call me on my cell phone number or text me at 214-282-6268. There's some office number on the website, but I always tell people, just text me, call me, text me. If you have a question and you're not from the area and you're concerned about something going on with your child academically, or there's been a problem, I'm happy to brainstorm it out with you. I do that a
Yeah,
lot. Parents will call me and they may not be a fit for the Einstein School. I'll say, well, call me back in 6 weeks and tell me what's happening with that. Because at the end of the day, our children are our most important resources, and they're going to be our problem solvers in the future. And if something is in the way, a hurdle right now, let's just get that taken care of so they can get on with the business of being great students and great learners for themselves.
you're amazing. Okay, and I'm probably only going to list your email just so you didn't get a million. I'm hoping this podcast reaches a ton of people. So just so your cell phone doesn't go out in print, I'll just put in show notes as your email.
I'm okay for it to go out in print. It is
You're
okay.
so awesome. You're like Bob Goff. You're going to put it at the end of your book. I love that. Okay, so rapid fire questions, real quick for you, Jan.
Sure.
Biggest inspiration in your life? Who is it? Who's the person that was the biggest inspiration?
The biggest inspiration of my life.
Who's the one that inspired you?
Pardon me?
Who's the one that inspired you?
There have been so many, but I would tell you it's really my third and fourth grade teachers
Oh, wow.
or co-teachers, and they inspired me in a way that I knew I could learn. And that their name was Mrs. Bragg and Mrs. Beal. Mrs. Bragg and Mrs. Beal. And they were inspirational, in that youth. Now, if I look at my, adult world, and I start, thinking more about like the beginning of the, the entrepreneurial journey with the, tutoring business and the preschool business, I would say at that point, it really was families. That there was not maybe one. I just saw a group of families that really inspired me because they trusted me with their children. And
Yes.
when I realized that people saw me as a trusting educator, but also sort of a mother figure, um, that they knew that their young children would feel nurtured. And so there was a student, his name was Clyde, and he was probably the most ADD child I ever had. And I would say he inspired me to really always make sure that I knew I was doing what was right for kids, because that child probably after his preschool years probably had a really hard elementary and middle school because of the ADD. His parent reached out and told me he was graduating with a PhD in physics from UT Austin.
Wow.
He's brilliant, and I knew he was at the time.
That's so
and
cool.
and so then as I get into as you go into the adult world and in my Einstein years, I would say the inspirations really were my two daughters,
Yes.
because they always believed in me.
Mm,
And I think the inspiration comes from the people around you who believe that you can do it. I'm never
yes.
going to let them down. So,
Yes.
so I think
They're your
that's
why. They're your why, and they always
they're
were.
my why. Exactly.
All right. Next question. What book? This is gonna be really hard. So you can just tell me what the most recent book is that's been the most helpful for you. Just recently. You're like me. I know you devour books. So
I devour books, but you're going to die when you hear what I say on this one. There's a book out there, and I have it on my Kindle, and it is called Reversing Alzheimer's.
oh, love it.
And it's a fantastic book written by a doctor whose mother died of rapid Alzheimer's, early onset of Alzheimer's. And what it was is about me recognizing the nutrition that I
Yes.
need to fuel
Girl,
my
I'm
brain.
literally after we end this, I'm doing another podcast on my health journey, and it is exactly that. It is what I've changed in my diet that has changed
Yeah.
everything of mental health.
Oh
So
my gosh, yes. And
what's
so
what's the book called again?
it's called Reversing Alzheimer's.
Reversing
Mhm.
Alzheimer's.
And
Okay.
so
Okay.
I want to say that I've read a gazillion business books. I can take away, stuff from all over. We're doing a school study right now on the atomic habits. I mean, there's just, there's one fantastic business book after another. There's, some really remarkable children's books about, what if and sort of like the the exploration of entrepreneurialism, and those things are all fantastic. But I would say this Reversing Alzheimer's like stopped me in my tracks. It's information a lot of the times of what we know,
Yep.
but it was presented in a way that made me say, oh, wait a minute, I need to make sure that everybody I know reads this book.
Yes. Yes.
And and
That's how I am. That's how this whole podcast was born, because I was like, I feel like everyone needs to know all this information. I have these
yes,
conversations. And here
yeah,
we are. So
yeah.
I love that. Well, I appreciate it. And I'm going to get that one. Okay. What's one dream you still have on your bucket list?
Oh, it's a continuation of the Einstein School. I want to own my own property so that we can build our own building and really
Yes.
make
Yes.
Einstein where it needs to be. So the dream right now is that expansion. It may
Oh,
take me
I love
another 10
that.
years to get there, maybe 8, but it has to be the right. It's 7 acres of land
I
with
was just about to say, how many
a
acres? What are
40,000
we
square
looking
foot
for?
building.
Okay.
Seven,
4,000
seven
square
acres of
foot,
land, 40,000
acres,
square foot building.
or
And I needed a
40,000.
bunch of,
I
yeah,
said four,
40,000, yeah,
40,000.
40,
Okay.
40,000. And I need a bunch of money.
In order to make that happen. Well,
I
we're
make
putting
it
it out
happen.
there.
I
We're
need
putting it out.
donations. We're a nonprofit, and I've never gone out to our community yet to do our big fundraising, but that is coming in the next, probably within the next 12 months.
Okay,
It is.
well, dear Lord, please let
Please
somebody
bring
hear
it,
this
bring it,
podcast and
bring it to
pass
me.
it to someone that
Yeah.
can gift that land or gift the building or both.
They have my
Okay.
email address for sure.
We'll definitely put it in there. Maybe we
I
do need to
answer
get your cell
everyone.
phone.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, so what is the most amazing place you've ever traveled? And this is because I have like hashtag will work for travel. Like I love to travel. So where have you been that you just love and definitely would recommend going?
My dad was military, so I grew up traveling sort of
Yes.
mostly in the Central and South America realm. We did some in Europe, but I would tell you probably the favorite country would be Antofagasta, Chile.
Wow. Okay.
Yep.
I love hearing the new place because I'm like,
Antofagasta, Chile.
I'll be Googling that.
Fantastic. The
Wonderful.
food, the environment, the people. Ah, yeah, it's wonderful.
Love it. Ooh, I'm definitely going to put that on my list. All right. So this is the last question. What is your one hidden talent or something that the world doesn't know that you do really well? Or I call it your like hidden superpower. What's your hidden superpower? I mean, I can think of a million things, but give us something we don't know.
I would tell you, my hidden superpower is really being able to identify quirks in people that are going to either help them be very, very successful, or I know is going to get in their way, and being able to deliver the information to that person to help them get back on track.
That is awesome. And I totally 100% agree with that. And I'm so grateful that you're out there doing the work that you're doing. And thank you for being on the podcast. You're
Oh, I
amazing.
love you, Joan.
I love you. I'm super excited for people to know about your school and just your story and just how it evolves. So maybe somebody here will be inspired to do so too. Well, thank you guys all for listening. I just want to wrap up with saying what I normally say, which is I believe in you. I believe God put you here for a purpose. He put you here for just this time. Don't believe homeless Bob that's telling you all the bad things, because I promise you, you're hearing this podcast for a reason, and it's to inspire your heart into go through the layers of stuff that we have put on our dreams and to dust them off so that the light can shine on them, because I promise there's something great for you to do here. There's amazing experiences for you, and God will put all the right people and all the right circumstances in place to get you along the path so that you can walk that out in your life. Thank you again for listening. Everybody have a great day.